Hello guys, welcome to my channel Psychology Point. Today we are talking about the psychology of people who talk to themselves. So let's start from the origins of the internal voice. Your inner voice is a fully specified neurocognitive system responsible for executive function, working memory, and behavioral regulation. Generating this silent stream of thought requires intense, highly coordinated biological activity across multiple regions of the brain. Yet humans are born entirely incapable of speaking to themselves. In the early 20th century, developmental psychologist Lev Vygotsky proposed the counterintuitive idea that our internal thought is not innate, but is engineered by our external social environments. Today, we can test this historical behavioral hypothesis against the hard physics of neuroimaging. By combining classical developmental observation with modern diffusion tensor imaging, we see that your internal monologue is an acquired, structurally constructed neural architecture. To understand how this architecture is built, we have to start with childhood behavior. The classical view, popularized by Jean Piaget, interpreted a child talking to themselves as a failure of communication. He classified this as egocentric speech, a sign of cognitive immaturity, where the child is simply unable to take the perspective of others. It was viewed as a developmental dead end. Vygotsky observed the exact same behavior and reached the opposite conclusion. He argued this private speech is a necessary parasocial stage of development. This diagram outlines Vygotsky's internalization model. Children take the words used by adults and turn those words backward onto themselves. When mapped chronologically, this self-directed speech hits peak frequency exactly between the ages of 3 and 7. If you watch a 4-year-old playing, narrating their actions out loud, detailing what fits where and what comes next, over time, this expanded, fully phonetic speech begins to condense into a personal shorthand of semantic meaning. The internalization process and neural infrastructure. We can observe the exact moment of internalization. The loud narration quiets to a whisper, then to silent lip movements, until the physical act of speaking becomes a purely internal mental process. As cognitive mastery improves, the speech goes underground, establishing a private regulatory system that requires a specific white matter infrastructure to function. To locate that physical infrastructure, we look at the brain's dual-stream language model. This visual differentiates the two primary pathways: the ventral stream, mapping sound to meaning, and the dorsal stream, consisting of the arcuate fasciculus and the superior longitudinal fasciculus. These tracks serve as the critical interface, connecting the brain's auditory phonological system with its motor system. Neuroscientists map the exact structure of these pathways in living humans using diffusion tensor imaging, fractional anisotropy, and structural maturation. This imaging provides researchers with a specific metric for white matter integrity known as fractional anisotropy, or FA. In gray matter, water diffuses randomly in a spherical, isotropic pattern. But in white matter, water diffuses directionally in an elliptical, anisotropic pattern. High FA values indicate heavily myelinated neural highways. The connection is insulated, allowing extremely fast transmission. Because myelin develops over time, measuring FA values across different age groups allows researchers to track exactly when and where the brain matures. Analyzing DTI data from newborns establishes the baseline state of this architecture. At birth, the infant brain is an environment of extreme plasticity, undergoing a rapid, chaotic blooming of neural connections. Tracking structural maturation by age, the ventral stream is highly detectable at birth, but the dorsal pathway is absent. As the child grows, the dorsal pathway slowly forms before a dramatic spike in FA values occurs between ages 3 and 7. This biological timeline perfectly aligns with Vygotsky's behavioral timeline for peak private speech. When we overlay the behavioral data directly onto the neurological chart, the spike in observable self-talk aligns perfectly with the intense myelination of the dorsal stream. The psychological process of speech going underground is physically bottlenecked by this exact myelination process. The emergence of adult-level inner speech depends on the structural completion of this neuroanatomical construction. The social engine of neural development. This data raises a question of causality. Does automatic biological maturation cause inner speech, or does the external environment actively shape the biology? Pedagogical research points to a process called sustained shared thinking, defined as deep, collaborative problem-solving between an adult and a child. Interacting within a child's zone of proximal development requires high-frequency neural communication. This repeated firing along specific pathways signals glial cells to begin activity-dependent myelination. As these sessions trigger oligodendrocytes to wrap active axons in insulating myelin, the social environment actively drives the structural development of the dorsal stream. External pedagogical interactions physically harden into permanent neural infrastructure. We can contextualize this mechanism by looking at the evolutionary history of these specific language tracks. Other primates, like the rhesus macaque, share our highly developed ventral stream, allowing for basic acoustic communication. However, even chimpanzees lack our highly developed arcuate fasciculus. This anatomical deficit severely limits their capacity for complex, symbolic inner thought and working memory. Inner speech functions as a primary mechanism for abstract thinking, emerging as a distinct evolutionary advantage for the human species. Once the human dorsal hardware is fully online, it supports an explosive cognitive leap in our capacity for symbolic representation. We internalize the knowledge and language of the tribe to build the architecture of our individual minds. The voice in your head is a collaborative, socially constructed architecture, completely unique to the human species. Do you have a constant inner voice narrating your thoughts, or is your thinking more visual and wordless? Drop a comment below. We're curious how different everyone's inner experience really is. Okay guys, take care and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Thank you.